Hello friends and welcome to another episode of Momo Makes. I'm your girl Momo. I do DIYs, upcycles and sewing projects. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. In this episode, I'm going to show you a couple of different tie and dye techniques. I made these t-shirts over the weekend for my son and his friends. I hope you enjoyed this project. So hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications and let's get started. In today's video, I'm going to use a Japanese Shibori dye technique called Ne-maki. Ne-maki uses thread as the dye resist, where found objects such as beads, pebbles, and items of different shapes and sizes are wrapped into the white fabric to produce circles and squares. Ne-maki Shibori uses Kanoko knots, and the dye of choice is of course indigo. Once unraveled, the white dots caused by the binding threads have different shapes based on the Kanoko knots, such as square dots, round dots, dots and chains, and various other exquisite combinations. This is highly similar to the art of Bandhani from India-Pakistan region. The word Bandhani originates from the Sanskrit word bandh, which means to tie. Like the Shibori technique, cotton thread is used to create knots in a series of rows to create floral and geometric patterns in Bandhani. I think the only difference being that Bandhani is dyed in different layers, so you can see many different colors. However, the Shibori dye is usually just indigo and white. The earliest example of Shibori textile date all the way back to the 8th century. Earliest Bandhani example as seen on this Ajanta cave painting from the 2nd century BC. Both of these techniques share a common thread, like literally a thread. The results are organic and charming. The modern tie-dye takes inspiration from these techniques and is a much simpler version, and that is what I'm going to be doing today. For the first shirt, I'm just using small rubber bands and tying them onto the shirt. I'm using the leftover rubber bands from my son's orthodontics. They are tiny and perfect for this project. Don't waste anything, guys. I roughly measured about 5 inches from the top and started pinching and tying to create a row of stars. This part of the shirt will be dyed blue because I am creating a patriotic shirt of red, white and blue. The bottom portion of the shirt will be the stripes. For this portion, I am gathering and tying rubber bands across the shirt. For the next shirt, I am using dry chickpeas as my resist object. Why chickpeas? Well, they're traditionally used in the Bandhani technique, and this is a common object used in the Bandhani from Sindh, Pakistan. For this, I'm going to hold the chickpeas underneath the fabric. I'm going to pinch and bind it with a small rubber band. Since I'm using a single tie rubber band, it is going to give me a small resist pattern. If you want more complex shapes, you can use a longer rubber band and twist it many times to create multiple lines. To make stripes on the sleeves, I am pleating the fabric and binding the sleeves with rubber bands. The bottom portion of the shirt will be the stripes. For this portion again, I'm gathering and tying rubber bands across the shirt. For the next shirt, I'm going to fold the entire shirt in an accordion fold and bind with rubber bands at equal distance. Here, I'm experimenting with rubber bands as well as cotton twine to see if I get different results with each type of tying. This again is a common modern tie-dye technique. I wanted to try the Shibori or Bandhani as well as the common tie-dye technique. For the fourth shirt, I'm doing a simple pinch pleat and I'm binding it with rubber bands. The dye I'm using for this project is Rit powder dye in scarlet and royal blue. I have set up 3 dye baths on the stove using these $1 foil chafing dishes. because I don't want to use the dye in my cooking utensils. Once the dyeing steps are done, the shirts will be submerged in the fixative to make the color fast. To my dye baths, I am adding hot water from the tap and filling up the dishes 3/4 of the way. Before I put the dyes in, I am going to add a good quantity of salt to the dye bath. The instructions said 1 cup, but unfortunately I did not read the instructions, and unfortunately I don't have 2 cups of salt to spare to put in my dye bath, so I'm just putting as much as I can find. Salt is a recommended additive by Rich Dye Company to make the color fast. Now I'm going to add the dye powders to the dye bath. I think this was a mistake. I should have dissolved the dye in hot water first and then put it in the dye bath. Dissolve the dye completely by gently stirring the mixture. The dye bath looks really dark, and that's completely okay. To test the color depth, I'm going to test dip a piece of paper towel. The colors look pretty even and bright, so I think the mixing worked. I'm going to dip my t-shirts in one by one. I want the blue and red to meet in the middle in a subdued melange of color, whatever that may turn out to be. I'm going for white, but I think they are going to merge and make a purple is what I can see, which is going to be better. So at this time, I'm going to keep the middle of the shirts undipped in the dye. The t-shirts will soak the dye bath for about 15 minutes at 100 Fahrenheit. I'm going to turn the heat to low and let the dye bath heat up. The heat will dissolve the dye particles evenly, I hope, and increase the dye uptake in the cotton fibers of the shirts. Once the time is up, I'm going to rinse the shirts under warm tap water until all the excess color seeps out. Then I'm going to soak them in the fixative bath for about 15 minutes. The fixative bath is also very warm, but it's not boiling. The dye is binded by the fixative and the colors are fast now. Dye will fully cure once we wash them. The wash will also make the colors seep and blend, eliminating the stark whites. If you're looking to learn detailed tie-dye techniques, I highly recommend the Art of Cloth Dyeing course on Craftsy. Craftsy is an online platform with tons of classes and workshops for beginners. If dyeing is not your thing, they have a lot of other classes for sewing, painting, quilting, embroidery, and much more. So if you want to try out Craftsy, please click on the link in the description to try out their free classes today. And here's the final reveal. I think the t-shirts came out really nice. I hope you like it as well. I love how the red and the blue blended in the middle, and the purple tones look so cool. Hope you like this project. Please hit like and subscribe to my channel. I post videos pretty much every week. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.